Break me down on your initial thoughts on Romance Dawn.
Yeah, I think Romance Dawn was unironically very good. I think, as we get into this a little bit more, I think we'll both have some differing opinions just based on, like, the context that you have. But honestly, of the manga first chapters and first arcs that I've read, I feel like this one was already much more consistent in quality and artistry, more so than maybe any other manga I've read. I of course there's a few exceptions, but I think genuinely I was very impressed by how much I enjoyed this first arc.
Going back to this, like, the very first chapter, like, it's crazy how much of, like, a vision it feels like Oda already has.
Right, exactly. It's really cool.
Like, I mean, One Piece, even 1,000 chapters later, doesn't even feel that different from what we're getting right now, which is crazy.
That is crazy to hear.
I say that as a
like
strength, not a weakness. Exactly. I guess, honestly, it's kind of... the first chapter is basically a mini arc in and of itself. I guess, like, what did you think of that little Luffy's past arc?
I thought that was really cool. I was kind of flipping through some other manga that I have copies of before we started recording this. And, of course, these are both modern examples. We'll probably talk about this more later on, but I am a very big JJK and Chainsaw Man fan. And looking through Fujimoto's work on Fire Punch and Chainsaw Man and with Gege on JJK, it's very interesting that we're just kind of thrown into the modern scape of the story. And I thought it was a really cool change of pace. Even thinking about stuff like Bleach, where just kind of, in contrast to all of those, we're just kind of getting a really good foundation for the story by seeing this past arc, and I really appreciated that difference. I think it was a really good tone setter.
I think something I was thinking about literally right before we hopped on is, like, every other shonen is like, oh no, I'm brand new to this crazy world. Like, for example, I mean, I love Bleach, but Bleach it does the trope that every movie does of, like, I've never been to this Soul Reaper world.
Right.
And that's like, a narrative tool to be like, okay, well, this is a really natural way to get, like, everyone familiar with your world and mechanics and whatnot. But, I mean, this is just, like, throwing you in. They're not like, Luffy's not like, I've never seen a pirate before in my whole life.
That's true.
Like, you're just kind of, like, doing it.
Did Oda work on any other manga or any other projects before this? I'm assuming he was probably, like, a manga, like an assistant or something like that, but...
Yes, he was an assistant on, I believe, Rurouni Kenshin. And, no, I think it was Kinnikuman.
Oh, gotcha.
AKA Ultimate Muscle for the English viewers out there.
True.
But I know he's best friends with the guy who made Rurouni Kenshin, and I'm not sure if he was an assistant on that, but I know for a fact he was an assistant on Kinnikuman, which is another, like, very cartoony, expressive manga with, like, that's pretty wacky. There's actually been a big trend somewhat recently of a bunch of, like, literature YouTubers, like Booktubers, reading One Piece as people who've, like, never read manga before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty interesting is that they universally are like, no, this is, like, a good start. I like this.
That's interesting.
I think it's because if you're, like, a guy who loves shonen, you're just kind of looking for, like, hype moments in aura right off the bat.
That's true.
And this being, like, a little goofier and a little bit, like, it's trying to feel like an adventure. We're not, like, sprinting to the finish line. We're like, yeah, this is, like, a fucking 30-year-long odyssey. We're gonna, like, take our time and set stuff up and, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, honestly. When you first brought that up, I was about to say, like, man, I feel like this is a pretty bad first manga to get into. But after you bring that up, genuinely, I think you very quickly, like, reversed my opinion. Because, I don't know, man, I think the different influences and how the story starts genuinely make this have a lower barrier of entry than a lot of other manga that I've read. Going to our little report card, I actually had Luffy as my arc MVP. I think I really connected with him right away. And I don't know, I think going between this contrast of, like, Western and Eastern media influence, I think Luffy is actually a very good example of a character that kind of strikes right down the middle. He feels very much like a traditional shonen character, but he also feels like he's right out of, like, a Saturday morning cartoon. And I think Yeah. I don't know. I think that like positivity really shines through. You know.
I think that's actually an incredibly good point. I once heard someone say pretty recently that Luffy is sort of this weird, like, he feels kind of anomalous to standard shonen protagonists, which I disagree with actually, because I think goofy idiot but like strong-hearted and like good-willed is like pretty standard shonen fare.
Right.
Like I see why they said that, but I couldn't agree. But they did have the take of Zoro is a more traditional shonen protagonist, sort of thrust into the side character spotlight. What do you think of that?
I think drawing on my current knowledge of Bleach, I think it's interesting that if I think I kind of agree with that comparison. I think Zoro is almost like an Ichigo presence. Um, I mean, I don't know. Do you agree with that? Is that too crazy of a claim to make?
I don't think so, just because I feel like if I were to think of the archetypical shonen protagonist, and there are obviously many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
I think on some level they do kind of have to be like, I mean, Goku-esque.
Yeah.
And obviously there are shonen before Dragon Ball. I mean, like Kenshiro is much more of a Zoro than a Luffy, for
Right.
example. But I think, like, to me, gun to my head, what is a shonen protagonist? It is like much more Luffy than Zoro. But like there are like some more serious, like, cool guy protagonists. I mean, like, this isn't shonen, but fucking the Sun Jin Woo from Solo Leveling is more of a Zoro.
That's very true. I mean,
Except hype moments in aura.
yeah, exactly.
We had our fun. We had our cute little intro. Now we have to like read a bad arc and like see why people think One Piece is slow. This was not slow. This was not nearly as bad as I was truly going into this expecting to like hate this and then for this to be a negative episode. I enjoyed my time with this.
I agree. I think the pacing might be slightly slower than the first two arcs, but it's also like the longest arc so far, so I think that's understandable. I specifically for those panels that you picked as your art appreciation. I think just I don't know, those shadows are so cool. Just the amount of detail is crazy. And my for my panel I chose the Gum Gum Gatling gun. That's hard. Like I feel like there's just so much more detail. And you're right, it's not maybe not even technically better, but just the way that the ideas are conveyed. I almost looking back on the first two arcs, I feel like the arts kind of let some of the action to the imagination, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think this one takes a step up where like you're really seeing the kind of the crazy powers at play here, and I think that's really cool.
I really liked the Gatling gun is one of those things where I've seen it before and it didn't like register in my brain how that had to be hard as fuck to draw.
True.
Like you have to draw 100 like hands, which is like the hardest thing to draw on the human body.
I know.
You have to draw them all at slightly different angles and slightly different perspectives, and
I know.
it looks so cool.
I know. It came together basically flawlessly. It's so cool. One of my critiques or like complaints about this arc was I think some of the dynamics with Usopp and Kuro were a little predictable. Like I think about halfway through the arc I kind of got the idea that oh, there's going to be like Usopp actually needs to go tell everybody that pirates are coming, but nobody's going to believe him, so he's going to have to come up and you know, try to find another way to solve the issue. And even though I knew that was going to happen, it was still effective, which I think is a very good sign. Like, even if you're making something that's a little cliche, still making it strong and interesting, I think that's a very challenging task. And the fact that this arc accomplished that was, I give it a lot of applause for that.
This is like The Boy Who Cried Wolf played so straight that it's genuinely wraps around to being kind of interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like it actually was heartbreaking. It was genuinely pretty heartbreaking to see Usopp be like, "No, I'm serious this time," and they're like, "We don't care, we don't care." But this was bringing me back all the way to high school when I first was going through One Piece, the anime, because Baratie is the arc where I personally fell in love with One Piece, and it genuinely was like insane how hard the nostalgia hit me.
That's awesome. We love stories like that.
We love them. But seriously, I'm dying to know. I'm dying to know if you appreciated this as much as I did.
I am very happy to report that I think I did enjoy it just as much as you.
I would say One Piece fans, by and large, really do love those small shitter side characters. The only problem is that One
That's
Piece and Oda specifically gets a lot better at making them as the series goes on.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Like, I mean, I'm someone who like probably likes Gin more than 99.99% of One Piece fans. Like, I love that guy. There is something to be said about how like One Piece has like 1,400 characters or something like absurd. Like, there are so many like random side characters with like one or two lines of dialogue, all the way up to like entire story arcs happening outside of the purview of the Straw Hats. And
wow.
There's honestly a really interesting phenomenon where East Blue, for all its strengths and weaknesses, I think a lot of the little side cast either like sinks or swims really hard, harder than most arcs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously I can't really say who's going to be long-term important, but like Mihawk, for example. Mihawk's a character who's probably going to come back at some point.
I do mention him in my predictions actually, for a different reason, but I agree. He definitely seems like a guy that will come back.
But like, Gin is someone who basically no one in the entire fan base cares about and will never come up again in the entire manga.
Fair enough.
But he's great. Like,
yeah,
I love him.
I think a strong story has more characters like that than not. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really funny, in the 4Kids version, they had to, like, censor his sword and necklace to be, like, shorter so they weren't crosses.
Were they, like, plus signs then? Like, Masato's cross instead?
Yeah, unironically, I think they do make his cross a Masato plus, and then they just, like, make his sword shorter. Like, instead of it being so long, it doesn't look like a cross. It's just, like, a tiny little hilt.
That's pretty good.
One of the other best changes in all of 4Kids One Piece, they turned his, like, Don Krieg spike shooting gun into a, like, Nerf gun, like, with suction cups at the end.
Did they leave in the gas, though?
Yeah, they left in the gas. Don't worry, they left in the gas. But there's a really funny moment where, if you remember, there's that genuinely, like, pretty goated moment of Luffy just, like, ripping all the spikes out of his body.
Yeah.
In the 4Kids anime, they just, like, they had to remove all of the blood, so it's just a perfectly fine Luffy, like, dramatically, like, taking off these, like, Nerf darts where they go, like, pop, like, pop, pop. And,
that's great.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think 4Kids was not ready for One Piece, dog. They could not handle the sauce.
That's true. I think, I mean, I guess if nothing else, I appreciate their commitment to doing things as high effort as possible. Like,
yeah, they did not
having
even
to reanimate that is insane.
I'm sure, like, the people who worked on, like, editing down One Piece hated their jobs so much.
Literally. I mean, they'd have to change every other page, basically.
Every time Luffy, like, smiles or bleeds, they have to, like, redraw the whole picture.
True.
The two worst things a person can do. Smile with your mouth open and bleed.
True. Kids, you know, maybe the problem with kids these days is that they see too many people smiling and bleeding, you know?
I want to hear your thoughts about this so bad, because the sort of, the maxim that you'll hear from One Piece fans is, not only is this where One Piece truly becomes, like, good, dare I say great, but it's also the arc in which, if you don't like One Piece by now, you're never going to like it, and the series isn't for you.
Yeah. That's tough to hear, honestly, but I personally am happy to report that I was a really big fan of this arc. I mean, I've been a fan so far, but I'm especially a big fan of this arc.
Yeah, I was going to say, luckily you just, like, already liked it, so...
You have Nami as your arc MVP, and I think Nami's arc in this
absolutely.
her character arc in this story arc is so good. It's so good.
I think she's just a pretty obvious arc MVP, because the way she's, like, shifting alliances is not something Oda does too much, of, like, this character who's, like, a weird moral gray. Like, I think everyone appreciates a character who's, like, their inclusion in a scene kind of makes you go, like, I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know whose side they're going to be on. Mm-hmm. And the way that you're genuinely questioning, like, in the beginning of this arc, like, is Nami a traitor? Like, who is she going to... And eventually, once you realize that, like, she went out of her way to save Usopp, like, you realize that she's, like, cool.
Yeah.
But I think her resistance to getting to that point, even up until, like, when she's which we'll definitely need to talk about this later, because I want to save this for its own little section, but, like, when she's, like, telling Luffy, like, I don't want your help, like, go away, even, like, at the very climax of the arc, is so good. Like, her arc, as you said, like, her arc is genuinely emotional and so cathartic and interesting. I adore
agree.
it.
Yeah. And once again, I think Nami, I was kind of interested because every other character had their backstory kind of given as they're introduced, but Nami didn't. Like even Zoro within just the very beginning of the story, we kind of got a little bit of his backstory already. Nami, we didn't really get any of that. So I was kind of curious why that was, and that also paid off by seeing her backstory in full here.
Like, when Arlong is like, oh, dude, this must be, like, Zoro's, like, bounty hunting posse. Like, he's not like, oh my god, it's Straw Hat Luffy, because, like, Luffy's not gotten there yet. He's got no reputation. But, like, in the East Blue, like, Zoro is, like, he's a notable bounty hunter. You know, he's making a name for himself.
True. Yeah, that's a great aspect of this. I think it's really interesting that, like, everybody is commenting on, Pirate Hunter Zoro, which is very interesting. I feel like not a lot of stories can pull stuff like that off.
We have the exact same moment as our favorite moment, and I think this is a sign that Oda is a great writer more than we are hacks, because this is just objectively the best moment in the entire arc.
Agreed.
Just straight up. There's no argument. If you say your favorite moment is, like, anything else, I will, like, kick you in the mouth. Both you and the listener.
Wow.
Right before we got on, I was doing something because I was curious. 100 chapters, like, in the scheme of One Piece, is like nothing.
Yeah.
100 chapters is longer than Chainsaw Man Part 1.
That is insane to put in perspective. Wow.
Like, it's kind of crazy how we're this far in and it still feels like not much has happened when, like, insanely, like, great series have, like, wrapped by now, like, in this time frame.
I mean, you kind of alluded to this, but, like, it has 2 new characters that we've never met before, and they're both just engaging and interesting.
I mean, I was unironically about to, on my bingo, to transition into in my report card.
Yeah.
I was about to put my arc MVP as, like, sword shop guy, just because, like, dude, he was so, like, he starts out as this scummy salesman, and then just like, wait a minute, this guy's the real deal. Like, I gotta be a part of this. And it feels so real.
Yeah, I agree. He's great. Yeah. I mean, that moment where he throws the sword on was just so peak. I want to say it's like Sanji starts carrying it around, and then
he just makes Usopp do it.
Yeah. Which is also a great moment, by the way.
That's a good gag. See, that's, like, the kind of character interaction stuff that, like, a lesser mangaka wouldn't pay attention to.
Right, exactly.
It feels so in character that Sanji would be like, I don't want to carry this around, and just fucking gives it to Usopp, who's just, like, bitching about it. That's hilarious.
I know.
I said that despite Arlong Park being a fantastic showing, East Blue really does feel pretty quaint, and that's intentionally so, but I don't think that means I'd come back to the saga very much. And I'm someone who likes shonen when it's quaint, but I feel like I've just seen quaint shonen done a little better. It's very rough around the edges in both narrative and action. I just think straight up, like, Oda's storytelling and, like, fights are just going to get a lot better. I think what's exciting to hear for you probably is that, like, basically every single thing he's doing here is going to be done better later. Like, there's not a single moment where I'm like, this is the best One Piece will ever do at this.
Yeah. I mean, that is insane, and that does make me very happy to hear.